Welcome gamers, it's your boy Henry, and in today's video we're going to be talking about many Koppaling ideas that will leave you speechless. Koppalings are one of the most amazing additions to Mario Maker 2, and there's going to be at least one idea for each Koppaling, so you'll be able to make some great levels, and I hope you enjoy this video. Kicking off with the first one, we got Larry. Now, Larry doesn't really have a gimmick. He's more of a basic boss, which means that we can use him in a ton of cool contraptions. Mario enters a room and instantly notices that he needs to defeat Larry because there's a key door. But unfortunately, he cannot get in contact with Larry. Fortunately for him, there are some SMP2 mushrooms, and the goal is to reach the goal with the SMP2 mushroom, and he notices some Goombas coming out of the pipes. So he uses the Goombas to attack Larry and get the key and reach the goal pole. So let me explain what's going on here. First of all, we made it so that Mario needs to reach the goal as SMP2 Mario, and we put 3 SMP2 mushrooms just in case if he takes damage. If he loses all 3 of them, then he'll just have to commit suicide. Basically, what he needs to do with his SMP2 powers, he'll need to use the Goombas coming out of the blue pipe and use those to defeat Larry. He needs to do this 3 times and then he can get the key. However, only one Goomba can come out of the pipe before the on-off switch is activated. The reason why we have this is that we want Mario to have less accidental deaths from the Goomba. Also, just a quick side note, if Mario defeats Larry, but there are no SMP2 mushrooms left and he gets damaged by the Goombas, then put the spike block in the corner so Mario does not get soft block. And now since we're done with idea number 1, let's move to idea number 2. Mario grabs a mushroom and enters into a pipe and instantly drops on a platform with Larry on it. He needs to defeat Larry while trying to make sure he does not land in the poison. But there's more that Mario has to worry about. He has to worry about this Skiro trying to crush him to death and this angry Chain Chomp trying to attack Mario. If Mario is able to defeat Larry, he can get the key and escape this land. Now, there's not really much explaining needed to do in this battle, of course, but there is one thing you may be curious about. How does a Chain Chomp leap out towards the player? Well, I've got the answer. Basically, when we put Chain Chomps on tracks under the poison, they'll randomly leap out at the player. If you give them wings, they'll leap out at the player even more. Well, that's a wrap up for Larry. Let's move on to Iggy. So, unlike Larry, Iggy and the rest of the Koppalings have a gimmick. Iggy's gimmick is that he'll walk around. Yeah, I know, it's kind of a boring gimmick. This basically makes Iggy a harder version of Larry, which in some cases can be nice. I was only able to think of one idea, but let's jump right into it. Mario enters a pipe and enters into a snowy, slippery land with Iggy trying to battle him. Unfortunately for Mario, Iggy has wings, which means it's very difficult to attack him. And it's in the nighttime snow field, which means that Mario is on slippery ground. Oh, and one last thing to make this room even harder. When the shell hits the on-off switch, a Mecha Koopa, a Bullet Bill, and Bowser Jr. try to attack Mario. If Mario can defeat Iggy, he can escape. There is quite a bit to take in this boss arena, so let me take it in step by step. To start off, we have a Buzzy Beetle timer that will hit the on-off switch after defeating all the bricks. When the on-off switch is activated, the Bullseye Mecha Koopa, the Bullet Bill, and Bowser Jr. will fall because they're standing on red dotted line blocks, and when the on-off switch is activated, the red dotted line blocks will turn off. I also recommend giving the player a mushroom because it makes it super difficult for some people. So, Wendy. She is probably the most easiest Koppaling because her rings are very slow and she moves pretty slowly. So in my opinion, if you want to create a battle with Wendy, you're going to have to centralize around her rings and stuff, because otherwise she'll become a complete joke. Fortunately for me, I figured out that Wendy's rings will last twice as long in water. So let's expand on that. Mario enters a room that is very small with a giant Wendy, and she's shooting out death rings, and these rings are ginormous for this small room, and since there's water coming up and down, her rings will last for a very long time, making it very difficult for Mario to jump between them. Mario will also have to adapt changing between water and land gravity, making it super difficult to attack Wendy. If Mario can defeat Wendy, he can escape. Unfortunately, this is the only idea I was able to come up for Wendy. However, she is pretty decent in very tight arenas, even if it's not in the forest theme. Our next Koppaling just happens to be Lemmy, and Lemmy has a really cool gimmick. Instead of shooting out magic, he'll shoot out these balls. I love Lemmy's balls. I wish I could lick Lemmy's balls. And the only thing I do not like about Lemmy is the fact that we cannot place these balls anywhere. It would be cool if we could put Lemmy's balls in ball blasters. That would be super cool. In all seriousness, Lemmy is such a cool and unique Koppaling. This is because his balls won't actually kill the player or damage the player. It'll actually just bounce around the player, making the player lose control. This is such a cool gimmick because this makes Lemmy not only usable in battle arenas, but also usable in non-battle arenas. For example, maybe in a tricky platforming level, maybe Lemmy could be used to spice things up or like knock off the player off ledges. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what Lemmy can do. So let's dive right into some examples of how we can use Lemmy. Our first example of Lemmy has to do with climbing up Lemmy's balls. Since Mario won't actually take damage when touching Lemmy's balls, we can use that to our advantage to make Mario climb up a tower using Lemmy's balls or something. In this example, Mario will have to use Lemmy's balls to climb up a short tower while avoiding the auto-scroller and a skewer. Now I said short tower because you can only have 7 Koppalings combined in a subworld.
Bruh.
Now, using Lemmy's balls to climb up a short tower is a really creative way to use Lemmy's balls. However, this isn't the only way we can use Lemmy's balls, so let's take a look at another example. Mario drops into a room and he's stuck. He's going to have to survive, but unfortunately, Lemmy's balls are trying to knock off Mario off the ledge. However, in a short period of time, Lemmy disappears and Mario can escape. Now, there is quite a bit to explain in this room, so let's go in detail. So first, you have to talk about Lemmy's location. You're going to want to put Lemmy in a location where Mario cannot interrupt Lemmy's actions. In this example, Lemmy's blocked off by some one-way walls and spike traps. We also stacked Lemmy on a mantra so that he doesn't waste his time moving around because the timer is really short. Speaking of timers, here's how we do it. So, we have tracks that overlap Lemmy. Then we put an ice block on it that goes all the way up there and then back down to crush Lemmy. Of course, if you want to make the timer longer, you can always extend the tracks. And that's going to be it for Lemmy. Overall, a really cool Koppaling that shoots out really cool balls. Lemmy is such a unique Koppaling. But now, let's move on to Roy. You think you understand Roy, but you don't. Roy is such a complicated Koppaling. Roy's gimmick is that he's able to jump into the background and appear anywhere. This sounds cool, however, this makes him nearly impossible to use in complicated contraptions, especially since that Roy is super duper random. It also doesn't help the fact that Roy can pretty much appear in the wrong spots at the wrong time, since Roy can pretty much dig up through any type of ground. This actually legit happened to me. In one of my most popular levels, Choose from Two Paths, there's this battle with Roy, and since the scroll stop was absolutely awful, Roy kept leaving the battle arena, which made the battle super annoying. Did I forget to mention that Roy can pretty much dig up through any ground? Yes, I mean it. He can dig through Ground bridges, semi-solid slopes, pipes, question mark blocks, hard blocks, invisible blocks, no blocks, donut blocks, music blocks, cloud blocks, ice blocks, burners, bullet bills, cannons, pals, P blocks, lifts, dotted line blocks, and on-off switches. Sideways trampolines! That's why sideways trampolines are the only type of surface where Roy cannot dig through. Technically, yes, Roy cannot dig through snake blocks, but that's beyond the point. So basically, if you're going to make a complex boss battle using Roy, sideways trampolines are a must. Anyways, before I jump into the first idea, I just want to say that sideways trampolines are affected by gravity. Alright, now we can talk about how we can use Roy in Mario Maker 2. I also forgot to quickly mention that Roy can dig through icicles, but not seesaws and lava lifts. Mario drops into a room and he needs to defeat 2 Roys. However, he cannot access them. However, snowballs are coming out of pipes. He can use these snowballs to damage Roy. If he's able to damage both Roys, he can escape. Now, there is a lot of uncovering in this boss arena. It may look pretty simple, but things are in certain ways because they have to. So first off, Mario's floor is sideways trampoline since Roy cannot dig through it. Second off, place 2 pipes that produce snowballs, then place the conveyor belt under the pipe so Roy cannot dig on the pipe. And make sure that most of the roof is covered with a snake block so Roy cannot dig through it. And that is how you'll prevent Roy from going inside Mario's room. The second question is, how do we make the snowball launcher? Well, it's easy. First step, add a one-way wall. Step 2, add 2 ground tiles above the one-way wall. Step 3, add a bumper just like that. And then you're done. This way, if Mario kicks the snowballs, it's able to go through. But Roy cannot enter in Mario's room, but Mario cannot also enter into Roy's room. One final mention before I go on to idea number 2. This obviously only works in the snow theme since snowballs only exist in the snow theme. Now we shall move to idea number 2. Just a heads up, the second idea I'm going to be talking about is very similar to the first idea that we talked about Roy. So in this level, Mario has to use helmets coming out of pipes to defeat Roy. However, it won't be so easy since Roy can move from bridge to bridge, making it difficult for Mario to aim. However, since Mario is a gamer, he can defeat both Roys and escape. Now, there are quite a few things going on in this room, so let's talk about them. First off, the Shellmet launcher is literally the same as the snowball launcher, except this time it pukes out a Shellmet instead of a snowball. And of course, the floor is sideways trampolines. And the Shellmet launcher is basically the same, except without the conveyor belt. And of course, place 2 bridges in the bottom corner of the left and the right. And last but not least, we have to talk about the scroll stopping. You see, the way scroll stop works is that if we put absolutely nothing above the scroll stop line, then that means that the screen will never show anything above the scroll stop line, which is perfect because then that creates a roof for a battle arena and preventing Roy from getting into Mario's room from the ceiling. And now since we're done with Roy, now let's move on to Morton. So a little bit about Morton. Morton has 2 moves. His butt slam and his magic. When he does a butt slam, it will cause the ground to stun. And if Mario is not in the air, he'll get stunned. Also, when Morton does a ground pound, he shoots out fireballs that move in a very interesting way that we can use for creative battle arenas. These unique attacks make Morton one of my favorite Koopalings, simply how creative these attacks are. These unique attacks create a lot of new possibilities of how we can use Morton. And you know what that means? Let's jump into some ideas of how we can use Morton! In this room, Mario will have to survive for about 10 to 20 seconds. However, that won't be easy since Morton is attacking left and right, up and down. But since Mario is a pro gamer, he's able to survive and escape. Now this room isn't really that complex, but there are a few things that we need to talk about. When creating Morton's room, you want to make sure that the exit is only 1 block tall so Morton cannot fit through it, and place a one-way wall in front of it so that Mario cannot enter in. And make sure to cover the room with blue dotted line blocks since when the timer runs out, Morton will get crushed. And make sure to do the exact same thing on the other side, except don't put a key inside of Morton. Speaking of the timer, it is really easy. Just put a sideways spring on a track that will eventually hit the Buzzy Beetle shell, and then the Buzzy Beetle shell will break the bricks, and then when it's done, it'll hit the on-off switch and get destroyed. And now since we're done with idea number 1, let's move to idea number 2. In this room, Mario has to travel to the other side before the timer runs out while avoiding Morton's fire and stun attack. However, since he's a pro gamer, he can escape before the timer runs out. There are a lot of things that need to be explained in this room, so let's go over them. The first step is to create a base of where the timer is located at, and make sure there are 1 block exits with one-way walls pointing in each direction. Step number 2, add Morton to the room. Step number 3, add a semi-solid background to the room to make it look more cool. Step number 4, place a fire bar in the center of the room and place it at a 90-degree angle. Step number 5, place an on-off switch above the fire bar. Step number 6 is to create a route with the dotted line blocks that will eventually lead to the door, which will eventually let Mario escape. Step number 7, add an extra row of ground blocks. Step number 8, remove 3 blocks of ground in order to make space for 2 on-off blocks and a bomb in the middle. Step 9, create 4 tracks and connect them together, with the last one being shaped as a flipped C. And last but not least, create a fire bar with wings and attach it just like that, and then you're done. And our last Koopaling is Ludwig. Now Ludwig is probably the most toughest Koopaling. This is because he shoots out 3 projectiles instead of 1. He also flutter jumps in the air. And on his final hit, he'll shoot out 5 projectiles. The flutter jump and the fact that he can shoot 3 projectiles at once or 5 leads to a lot of new battle arenas. So let's jump into some of those. Before I start the first idea, let me tell you a little bit of a cool feature that's in the night sky theme. Apparently, if you put fast conveyor belts that face the opposite direction of where Mario is, if Mario clings onto them, he can actually gain height from them. But if the conveyor belts are not facing the opposite direction of where Mario is and he clings onto them, he will shoot back down. Now, I'm telling you this because this has to do with our first idea. How? Well, let me tell you. You see, in this battle arena, there is no floor. There's only conveyor belts that lift Mario up or down. Because of this, defeating Ludwig is really difficult because he shoots out many projectiles. But since Mario is a pro gamer, he can escape. This stadium is actually really simple to make, so let's just go over it. First off is obviously putting the conveyor belts on the left and right side of the stadium so that Mario can gain height or not gain height. Step 2. Adding Ludwig into a Fire Koopa clown car. Step 3 is obviously putting a key in Ludwig, and then the final step is placing a door to enter in and a door to exit. And that's pretty much it. I told you this idea was very simple. Now let's move on to the second and final idea for this video. This next idea is also really simple. Mario is on moving platforms and have to avoid Ludwig's projectiles. And he has to keep doing this until the Muncher crushes the bomb. This is a bit more of a complicated battle arena compared to the first one, so let's talk about it. Step 1 is to put bullet bills on lifts that go in different directions. Step number 2, place Hit Muncher on a track that will eventually travel towards the bomb, crush it, and will eventually activate the on-off switch. Step number 3, place 2 Ludwigs in the wall covered with blue dotted line blocks so that when the Muncher crushes the bomb, they will get crushed as well. And then after that, you're finished. This idea was a bit more complicated than the first one, but it's still pretty simple to make. After a long 21 minutes of this video going, the video is finally over. This took me so long to make with school and stuff, so I hope you smash that like button and smash that subscribe button because this took such a long time to make. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Goodbye!